How's it going, guys, and welcome to Gaming Evolved. I'm Shifty Cow, and in today's video we have another episode of Forumfield for you guys. So if you guys do go on to enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like down below, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button as we do post content daily. So hopping right into it, we're going to be talking about the Javelin. So this guy says, I'm a huge fan of the Javelin. It was great in Battlefield 3 because it was fire and forget, but for some stupid reason DICE made it fire and maintain lock unless it's laser designated in Battlefield 4, despite that in real life it's a fire and forget. Then we move on to its damage. They nerfed its damage before to make it a 4-hit kill to tanks and LEVs when you're not laser designated, and it's going to be a 3-hit kill with it. But in real life, one Javelin rocket, which costs around $80,000, can one-shot a tank. Obviously I don't want it to be that powerful for the sake of game balance, but the fact that I need 4 rockets while maintaining lock is ridiculous. Now he continues talking about this for a couple more paragraphs, but basically he wants to see the Javelin buffed in terms of damage, so it's going to take only 3 shots to take out a tank, and then maybe 2 if it's laser designated, and then it should be able to one-shot a rib boat because having to shoot it over and over again when it's such a light vehicle just doesn't make any sense. So before we get into really talking about this, I want to just point out that I really am not that big of a fan of lock-ons. I just don't enjoy them, so I'll try not to be too biased about it, but I really just think that most people are going to be a lot more successful with something like the SMAW or the RPG, just kind of free fire things like that. Not really the SRA anymore because that's been nerfed pretty hard, but a lot of times when I'm trying to use those, they tend to just get me killed, or I just kind of feel stingy using them because they are lock-ons. So we're just going to move right into it. I think this would be a relatively good idea, but the problem with this is that you're only thinking about ideal situations where it's one infantry guy versus one tank, and they're kind of at an even playing ground. If they decided to buff the Javelin, we'd probably see a lot more people using it because, you know, obviously if it gets better, more people use it, but I already see a relatively decent amount of people at least trying to use it right now. And it's just incredibly annoying. When you're in a tank and you have to completely back out of cover because one guy is trying to lock onto you, it just gets incredibly annoying. So imagine if they were just rooftop camping, you have 3 or 4 engineers, they could pretty much one-bang people all day. Like, you could not stop them. So personally, I think the Javelin's in a pretty good spot where it is right now because you're going to be able to 4-shot tanks, which usually the RPGs take anywhere from 4 to 5, so you're guaranteeing yourself that it's only going to take about 4. And also, you're really only going to miss if they use the active protection or flares, and they can only do that once for a solid minute and a half. So unless you're just utterly awful with this thing and you're just standing out in the middle of nowhere where everyone can see you, you're probably going to be able to be relatively okay with this thing. It's not going to be, you know, the best thing in the game, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be something that you can, you know, lock onto someone and not have to worry about missing, or at least be able to get a little bit of damage so someone can take them out later. Not to mention, if you do decide to try and attack a lightly armored vehicle like buggies, quad bikes, dirt bikes, it's going to one-bang them and they have no countermeasures, so that's pretty much a free kill. So I don't think it needs a buff at all, and I really hope they either just leave it where it is, or even just a slight nerf just to get less people using it would be pretty cool. So moving on, the next post is going to be talking about the in-combat system, and this guy's grammar isn't the best, so try and bear with me, but hi DICE LA, can you make this an option in the menu for those who want to join a friend who is in combat? Personally, I think it's flawed, as if your one friend is defending a flag, but he is under fire. You can spawn on him and help him if he is in a gun battle, then the flag is lost. Makes no sense really. So basically this guy just wants an option to spawn on people who are in combat, so that way rather than, you know, losing a base and having that person die, you can spawn on them, help them out, and hopefully capture that base, and you don't have to worry about spawning somewhere way far away and then having to run all the way to it. So I definitely see where this guy is coming from because it is rather annoying when it says in combat and you can't spawn on them, but there is a reason for it, and it's a rather important one. If you've ever been in a gunfight before they actually did this, it was pretty annoying to have someone who was almost dead and then someone just spawns right on them and just ruins you. So you wouldn't get either kill, and this was a pretty common thing to just have people spawning on top of each other when they're just right in the middle of a firefight, and then solely because someone is spawned on and they have more people shooting, they win that firefight. And so while this is partially for the person who's spawning in so they don't get killed as soon as they do spawn in, it was also a big part of just kind of fixing the gunplay so you're not just going to have people coming out of your butthole and then having people kill you over and over and over again. So while I do understand that it can be pretty annoying to have one teammate guarding a base and then having him be in combat and then you end up losing that base, like that's pretty frustrating. I think it's much better the way it is, where you're not going to worry about, you know, spawning in and dying immediately, and also you don't have to worry about people spawning on people you're shooting at, and then them just turning on you and killing you. So moving on to our last topic of the day, we're going to be talking about tracer rounds. So this guy said, the latest update added a bullet tracer effect that looks more like an orange laser beam. It's very distracting and looks nothing like bullet tracers. The view of enemies while firing is obscured with this orange color, and when you're shot at, it looks ridiculous. Anyone else hate this new effect? So whenever I'm looking through the forums to do this series, I see a lot of different things about tracer effects, on people whining that it's very distracting, or just a ton of different things. And personally, I really don't think it's that big of a problem. I've never been, distracted to the point where I'm like, oh, I lost that firefight solely because my screen was slightly more orange. Like, I really just don't think that. I've really noticed that it is a lot brighter. Like, that's kind of just a fact, especially on things like shotguns. You really do notice tracer rounds, they're not a lot more brighter. But I think the main reason why they actually did this is to add a little bit more of a skill gap. Now, this does kind of sound silly at first, but if you think about it, if you're able to identify, say, someone with a suppressor who shot a tracer, and you figure out, okay, that came from over there in that room, I know someone's in there, but they're not on the minimap, that's a huge skill to be able to use, and you're going to probably come out of that firefight on top solely because you know he's in there, and he doesn't expect you to be coming in because he's got a suppressor on. So this definitely isn't going to be something that people are just trying to learn just so they can become gods of the game, but I think that's kind of what DICE was going for, and really one of the biggest things I could think of is they could do some really cool gun balance things with this tracer round, because as you guys might have heard when they were coming out with their gun crate DLC that had the AN-94 and all those guns, the sole reason why they said that they weren't adding in another sniper is there really wasn't much they could do to make it feel different from all the rest of the snipers. You can adjust the fire rate, muzzle velocity, the drop, and that's about it. So they were just thinking, you know what, if we can't do anything different, why even add one at all? But what if they added one where rather than having kind of a vapor trail like it does now, or a tracer round, it was just completely invisible. It was kind of like a ghost sniper. That would be a really cool thing of kind of making guns a little bit more stealthy, and that could be kind of like a stat. So maybe have the SRR-61, have that have a huge bright tracer round, so that way less people are kind of wanting to use it, but that's probably not going to change. But anyways, it's going to be a lot easier to find someone who's using that versus, say, I don't know, the SV98, where its tracer round is practically invisible. It would just be kind of a cool dynamic, and I'm not sure if they're ever going to do something like that, but I think that would be a pretty cool mechanic, and it's a lot more subtle than just adjusting damage and all that stats. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like down below, and if you have any suggestions, be sure to tell us down in the comments below, or you can send us a message on our Twitter. Until next time, guys, stay buttery.